Today's guest on the Connection Experiment is Lisa Rotstein, PCC level coach and member of the Coach Academy facilitation team. I'm so excited to welcome Lisa because she brings a wealth of experience in her space, which is public sector, healthcare, and private sector, working with boards, working with C-suite level leaders, and in spaces that a lot of us often wonder about and want to get into. She talks about how she learns to connect in high stakes conversations. I can't wait to dig in, and I am so excited to have Lisa on the show today. Let's get started. Lisa, welcome to the show, and I'm just delighted to have you today because we get to talk about things that are really important to people. In the work that you do, your experience is golden, and so many people, especially those who are transitioning from careers and leadership and an executive life, moving to a coaching career, they want to know how to apply those skills to coaching. They want to know how to bring their experience to their coaching career into boardrooms, into organizations, into teams. So I'm really excited to hear about your experience and for you to share your wisdom today. So the question that I would love to start with is, when did you know that you wanted to be a coach?
Well, first of all, Natalie, thanks for having me this morning, and thanks for the very generous introduction. And wow, that's right. Starting right off with a very powerful question.
It's my specialty, I hope.
Yes. So, when did I know I wanted to be a coach? It's funny because I've actually been reflecting on that question, and I think it's something that I've always wanted to be. I didn't know that there was a name for it. And it's funny, just a few weeks ago, I asked my mother a question, and the question was, Mom, what was my first question that I ever asked you, and how old was I? So she knew the question right away, and it was powerful, and she didn't want to answer it because she had a car full of 8 other people in the station wagon. And she said I was about 4 or 5 years old. And then as I think about it, it's something that I've always, that I just do. I ask questions, and I came upon this concept of coach about a decade or so ago. And I thought, oh, I think that's where I fit in. So, yeah, been about a long journey. And so here I am.
So when you describe yourself, and I'm going to go out on a limb here, reading your LinkedIn, about me and just what I know about you as well. You don't use the word connection necessarily, but you talk a lot about the value proposition of connection in your work. I hear you say, where I read on LinkedIn, you're a partner with organizations across healthcare, nonprofit, board members, board sectors, or public sector and high impact work. You are problem solving. You're helping people think more clearly. You're helping them be more effective in their work, and you're asking the right questions. You're picking up on patterns. What do you make of that in the role of connection in your work?
It's about going into these organizations with an open mind, with a willingness to listen without bearing assumption. Even if I've done my reading, I've looked at their strategic plans, I've looked at how they're doing financially, I've researched them all over the internet and even spoken with stakeholders. I'm not going in to judge them. I'm going in to hear what's important to them. And what I've learned is when you go in with that mindset of what can I learn from you about you, they're the experts about themselves. They've been doing their job for decades, or maybe sooner if they were entrepreneurs and it's a young company, but they're the ones who know. And that one problem that I'm coming in to solve is probably a symptom. And we have to figure out what the root cause is.
So what does that look like if you think of steps or strategies or things that you do, that you rely on to create a space that makes you sit in that learner position and not go in wanting to save, fix, advise, and tell?
I think it starts right from the introduction with creating a bond, a connection where they feel safe, that they feel that they can share anything with me. It is confidential. I will check in with them if on meaning. I don't take it at face value. I believe in co-design in my approach. And when you're co-designing, you're partnering in real time. And with the organizations I work with, they are supporting vulnerable people from across the community, from cradle to grave. And so we have an agreement that this is for them. Nothing happens for them without them. And we involve the client as well. It's very important. So we have a very global view, and then we funnel that information and distill it.
So a lot of people are hearing co-design right now, and they're thinking, well, I think I know what that means, but what does that actually sound like when you're co-designing in real time?
It sounds like asking the question of what's important to you right now. What are your hopes and dreams? What does success look like? What do you hope will be different by the end of our engagement together? And how will you know that you've landed on this?
Yeah, great questions. Yeah.
Yeah. And I'll also ask them for a marker of how will I know?
Yeah.
What do they want me to see? Because as much as I'm hired as a coach or as the consultant, I'm also speaking with them, maybe it's a potential client one day. Maybe it's someone in my family. Maybe it's someone I know. Maybe it's for my board work. Maybe there's something. So what am I looking for as well? They're my guide.
I want to go back to something you said, which I think is super important. I don't want to just skim over it. You said, when you work with these people who have been in their careers for 10, sometimes 20 years, they know their job. They know what they've been doing. You can't possibly know the intricacies of every day of their life that got them to where they are in that moment. The client knows. Tell me more about that in when people talk about, I don't know where the line is between coaching and consulting, or what do you mean my value proposition isn't to advise? How do you deal with that for yourself, and what are some things that you rely on to, even when you're tempted to give advice, that you remember that this person knows so much more than I do?
That's exactly it. When I prepare for a coaching session, I spend a lot of time on the coach's mindset. I spend a lot of time on how do I want to show up? What do I know about them? Bring it all together, and now let it go. It's not important. It's what's important is what's going to happen in that room today. And in fact, right after this recording, that's exactly where I'm going, is into a room with leaders. And I'm letting go at all the assumptions, everything. And I think you asked about how do I keep that line clear? And it comes down to contracting. What am I here to do? How am I serving you? Am I serving you with advice? Okay, we're consulting, and there's a contract for that. Am I serving you as a coach, as your executive or leadership coach or your board coach? That's another lane. And clarity really is the guide for both of us. Granted, they might ask for advice, and I know enough to know that they might clarify for themselves during our coaching session what it is that they wanted advice on all along. But I will check in at the end to ask them if they still wanted the advice. And I almost feel like 9 times out of 10, they say, no, it's okay. I'm good. I've got it. And I'm always so relieved afterwards, and I do my happy dance afterwards thinking, okay, they got it. It is true. They are whole. They can fix themselves. They're not broken. I held up the mirror. They made the connections, and they are whole and complete. And I could never have known what's happening in their mind to get there because they're doing all the work.
Yeah, and that brings up an important point about advice. You know, we talk a lot about advice in our programs because we have clients who are coming to be coach certified, and all they've ever done in their entire life is give advice. And they struggle with, how do I move from that knowing to wondering what is this about for someone else? And I think you hit it on the nose when you say, like, you can't know what the real core issue is because it's so complex, because we're humans and we are complex. Asking those questions and discovering that the person has the answers for themselves, that's when change is, continuous and pervasive and it actually happens. I think advice, and maybe I would love to hear what your experience has been, when you've tried your coach approach and you've tried your advising approach, what are you noticing about how that impacts people and, the result of both ways?
It's a bit of a loaded question because I like to think I'm really good at both.
Okay, that's fair. That's fair. And I want to be fair and say the other thing that you said, which is true, is you contract for consulting. It's not that consulting is not a good path. Right. You contract for consulting, you contract for coaching. I'm not here to tell people that every conversation is a coaching conversation, but I want people to stop and think, what can I do to create more connection between us and to themselves more deeply with coaching strategies that I wouldn't normally do when I launch right into consulting and advising? It's those questions that reveal the real issue and not the one I think it is that I'm trying to solve. So that's where I kind of want to make that distinction, because I really do believe that there's situational leadership or opportunities to show up as a coach, to show up as a consultant, to show up as a mentor, to show up as a teacher. These are all different lanes.
Yeah, and they're all very real lanes. It can be very frustrating to only be asked questions when you really need advice at that moment. You really want someone who understands at the system level what is happening, who can bring all that research in and help you through it as an organization to guide. Even thinking about the 50,000 foot view, that if I came in and said, this is what you need to do, I've got the answer for you. it might be shelved. It might completely it might completely flop because I haven't considered how they feel about that information. I haven't considered what are they internalizing? What have their clients said to them? What is the experience that they have endured, whether it's at that moment in time from that organization or from another organization? We don't just leave our minds at the door of a former organization. Everything comes with us into every room that we're in. And so I would say the coach approach is about staying curious a little bit longer, lingering in the unknown, lingering in the silence, allowing the silence to do the lifting. And when my room becomes silent and everyone just looks up and they're looking at each other and they're looking around and then someone says something, it's like there's a witnessing of a birth to some new idea. Like this little tiny bud is coming up from the ground and everyone is watching it and like, oh wow. And then it goes off into different directions. If I were to rush that process and consult and say, this is what you need to do, this is what the research says, and here's my report to you, and bye, after I present, I think it's going to leave them with whiplash.
How long did it take you to come to that realization?
A long time. I will say that I wish that I knew about coaching when I was starting my career. I wish I knew about it in my 20s, in my 30s, in my as the decades go.
And the rest of the 20 years.
Yeah. And it took me a long time to know that I didn't have to have all the answers. And I think what happens is people get bored of hearing what you have to say. They're not listening because they have their own internal dialogue as well. And realizing, who am I doing this for actually? Yes, it's a great qual. Yes, looks great. It's a great experience. But at the end of the day, this is not about me. This is for them.
On your LinkedIn bio, you write, you bring empathy and rigor. And most people, I think, would say those are opposite in many ways. So how do you bring those together? How do you bridge empathy and rigor?
So an example for me would be if I have results to deliver that I have developed with rigor, with intensity. I am very detailed and thorough in my work, but I'm also very considerate of the audience as well. And there's a person on the other side who has potentially a board that's watching, funders that can be impacted. I'm about to tell them something that they might not want to hear. I'm about to share data. And so I want to care for them in a way that is not sympathy. I don't feel sorry for them to have this. I think what a gift that this has been discovered. And that is where the empathy comes in, I'll share it and then I'll get right out of the way and let it sink and let them talk about what's landing for them. And if they're not talking, share an observation or ask a question. Their world is about to change sometimes for the better and sometimes not, but usually for the better.
Well, and even I've come to learn in my own life, even when you think it's not, for the better. It's hard and it's, emotional. It ends up opening a door that you never expected. So I think just that is also interesting to let those possibilities linger in those conversations, even the really hard conversations. So when you think about, a CEO of a hospital system, or maybe it's a parent just trying to hold the family together, these are very different situations, but there's so much that is the same. And I wonder in your work, like what strategies are you bringing to, or maybe it's how do you show up to these different conversations? And what are you noticing is that thread that is, human, that is the same for all of us, whether we are that CEO or that parent?
I show up thinking, how do I want to be treated? And then I actually have to let that go, because then I remind myself, oh, no, just because I want to be treated that way. So I let it happen. It will happen automatically for me. How would I want to hear this? But it's not about me. It's about them. The parent that's trying to hold it together. The hospital CEO who has a huge deficit, who is struggling with horrible press or something happened in their emerge or whatever it is. The parent who's holding it together, a single parent, or a parent who's struggling with aging parents and young children, and there's so much stress, and they have to go to work, and they have to look after someone else's children, maybe they're a daycare provider, maybe they're a teacher, maybe they're a lawyer, I don't know, whatever that is. It's about letting them know that it's okay to show up however they want to show up, and it's not going anywhere without their permission. And walls come down, doors open up, tears show up, the pain comes into the room, the mask comes down, whatever they've been trying to hold it together, and creating that space to have real conversations. That's when the change can happen. The vulnerability shows up and we embrace it.
Yeah, I think that's the connection that I do this work for. That kind of space that you create where the CEO or the parent can come and bring the pain into the room. We did a workshop in our community this week, psychology of coaching, and the topic was front stage, backstage. And, how do you, as a coach, curiosity is your greatest strength and tool. Knowing that the front stage isn't representative of the backstage. The backstage is where we want to get curious about the pain, about the emotion, and about what's really going on for someone. So with that in mind, when you walk into a room and there's people sitting around a table, or a team sitting waiting for whatever, a presentation, or for you to do your magic, what are the indications to you that there is trust and connection in this space, or that this is a team that is isolated or living in silos, basically?
I can feel it when I walk into a room. I can almost feel that thickness in the air. It's like everyone's holding their breath, or they're looking to one person, the leader in the room, to speak because they don't want to say the wrong thing. I've heard it described as they're walking on eggshells. They're saying what the CEO needs to hear, and to avoid getting in trouble, being humiliated in front of the group, seeing them get angry at them, say the wrong thing, and maybe I'm fired today. They might say, I saw that with a colleague of mine. They're gone, and they make the assumption it was probably because they spoke up. Not speaking up, not being able to contradict, and really wrestle with the information that comes into the room is a sign for me that it is not safe for them to talk.
So what do you do? How do you bring safety into that space or connection into that space?
I set the stage. So at Coach Academy, you call it group agreements.
Mm-hmm.
So it's about the agreements, because I have the data. The CEO or the sponsor has probably seen the data for sure. I don't like surprises. But everyone might have seen it, but now we're actually going to talk about it, so it's going to become real. And so there's agreement of inviting the resistance, getting curious about it. I don't tell them not to ask why questions. I'm not going to tell them what to do. Let them show up as they are with each other. Let their culture come in and create whatever it is that they need to create in order to achieve whatever it is that they wanted to achieve. When they're quiet, it's interesting, actually. I want to say something that quiet, safe quiet, and unsafe quiet feels different as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it sure does. And I am wondering, I think I want to just touch on the culture piece. You know, you gave an example of, I'm afraid if I say the wrong thing, I might lose my job. And then I find a lot of leadership teams are kind of surprised by those comments. And they're like, well, I don't understand. I thought we did all this work to create safety in our teams. And what they don't realize is the modeling that takes place in the culture. You might say it's safe to say anything, and then you watch somebody get fired for saying anything. And that is the culture. That's the hidden culture. That's the culture nobody wants to talk about, is showing itself. And so what do you do to shift a culture that, first of all, maybe it's how do you mirror the actual culture in a way which is they're open to the feedback? And what are the steps that you've seen work to shift from that sort of hidden culture to a coaching culture?
It's a great question. It actually starts right from the contract. It actually even starts before that, in the proposal phase. So we'll have an initial conversation, and I will tell them what coaching is and is not, to be clear. First, I'll ask them if they know, and then clarify. And it starts with, this is what could happen to you. I'm not saying it will, but it could. And talking about how it can be very uncomfortable. When you're churning up the sediment at the bottom of the ocean, you can't see clearly until that sediment settles again, and then you have all this visibility under the water. And a coach's work is to go under the water with the company, with the client, with the team, and turn that up, and then the dust settles or the sediment settles. So yeah, I start by letting them know this is not easy, but I also commend them for their bravery and their courage to do this. And long term, this does pay off. And there's a lot of research that it does pay off, retention-wise, being a top employer. When you care for your people, they feel it. It's not just lip service. It's not just, we have an EAP, use it if you want. It's about, no, I actually want to know what's going on and how I can support you as your manager. Um, so moving from that, I will reinforce it in the proposal. We will clarify that. Did I get this right? Is there anything you want to change? And I actually even put it in the agreement. So we're clear all the way through, and then we can come back to the contract if there's any concerns. And there will be concerns. I think it's great when there's resistance, when there's a concern. I thought this was happening. What do you mean? Great. You're becoming aware that something is changing about your culture. Let's talk about that. And having those frequent check-ins. People need to feel supported. The sponsors need to feel supported of the work, because it's all on them. The eyes are there. They'll have all these feelings about the look, what have I done to people, before they say, oh, look what I've done. Look what we've done.
I can see your energy light up when you talk about this work. And it gives me joy, because it's so great that you can talk about hard conversations, high stakes, difficult emotions in the room, and feel confident and like joy to be working with that space, in that space, that real space of connection. That's where the work happens. I'm fully aligned with you, and I love the metaphor of the sediment being kicked up, because I truly believe there is the only way to get, to shift and to create that change that everybody wants is to go through, not around. You can't go around it. It can't be tiptoed like the eggshells you're talking about around, because that's what it is. It's eggshells broken. It's cracked. It's delicate. It's too tender. And bringing that resistance into the room to say, hey, let's look at this. What is it? That's the ultimate space of safety. And so my next question, because I've had many debates with people about this, is the leader in the room for those conversations or out?
Great question. From my experience, they're in the room, and they're setting the tone. The leader, their executive team, they are there. They are partners. They are even privy to the change. They know this is happening before anyone else, because they're sponsoring. Their name is on that contract for their organization or a certain group or team or person. So they're in the room if it's a group thing. They're not in the room if it's a one-on-one conversation.
Right.
I really want to be clear about that distinction. And it's all about creating trust and safety in different spaces. So it's not that they're always listening. They get a chair in the corner. They can watch. No, they can't.
Yeah, that's an important distinction. So thanks for bringing that in. I think a one-on-one coaching space is the greatest gift you can give to a team when the coach comes from outside the organization. If they're internal, there's too much complexity again with loyalties and cherished outcomes, and it becomes very complicated. But I think the model of bringing a coach from the external world in gives that, confidential space, that opportunity to explore and to build the safety. And I do say build because it doesn't come right away. People won't trust it at first, at least in my experience. Many people won't. So part of becoming a coach or learning coaching strategies, you don't have to be a coach to do this, but learning coaching strategies is learning how to build connection with people. It's a skill. And I believe it's a skill we've often left to assumption. But when I think about, the scenarios that you just brought up around leader in the room, I absolutely agree with you. And I'm going to add that I often find the role that we play as facilitator or consultant or coach is one of a mirror to the leader. The shadow coach is what we call it in our profession. And like I'll bring up an example where I had a team coaching contract, and the team was in a period of transition. There was a reorg going on, acquisitions, and so there was a lot of uncertainty in the space. And the leader was in the room because I contracted it that way. If I'm going to do this for you and I'm going to come in and work with your team, you have to be there, because the worst thing is to make all kinds of progress with the team. Then the leader shows up and everybody stops talking. Everybody takes back almost what they've said and shared, and the progress made in the room kind of evaporates because the leader is that energy. And I watched this happen in a space with the leader in the room, where the language being used was, we all need to be champions. You are champions. And the word, they all were very familiar with that the champion kind of speech, I want to say, because it seemed like it was becoming a speech in the space with the team, and one they were very familiar with. And then one person says, yeah, but we never are. We never get to be the champion. You're always telling us, be the champion. And it's like, I'm tired of hearing it because we never get there. And I was like, whoa, that was such a beautiful moment where that sediment was kicked up and they all chose to enter the space, because then that created safety for someone else to say, yeah, it's like we're running a race that will never end. And it became a really honest conversation and a mirror for that leader who didn't even realize the impact of his language. He thought he was actually being a cheerleader. He thought he was being, bringing in energy and inspiration. And you could completely see the shift in that leader when he realized, like, whoa, I'm having a completely different impact than I expected, than I thought I was having. And that's the opportunity when the leader's in the room. You don't get that. You don't get the real work, that time to work through the resistance.
Mm-hmm. You brought up a couple of things that I think are important to share. And one is about buy-in.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And how we do that as coaches. Because I have heard how that is an area that creates a lot of anxiety for new coaches. How do I do that? How do I have that conversation? Why would they even listen to me? And they will listen to you because you're the expert. You are the coach. They are connecting with you to help their team. And I believe buy-in happens when we're partnering, when we're asking the leader questions, when we're showing up saying, this is what I want, this is what we're going to cover from what you shared with me from the conversation we had. Is there anything that you want to change? Is there anything that might be shifting right now in your world? Because we had this conversation a month ago and now it's the training. And being nimble and flexible in the coaching approach is really important.
Yeah, flexibility, it's a great word to bring in. And I think that goes hand in hand with cherished outcomes. When we have an agenda, when we want to be the solution for the team, when we want the team to win, when we want results that are out of our control, that's a cherished outcome. And it guides us, and we miss then all the other information that's happening. So that flexibility is your moment of saying, we talked 2 months ago, we're here now, the training's starting. What might have shifted since our last talk? That is the ultimate flexibility, and that's flexibility in practice, which I think is important to say. We talk in big terms sometimes, safety, flexibility, agreements. But those steps that you take to get there, those are the ones that a lot of people struggle with. They don't know how to name them. They don't know how to do them in the moment. So I think this is a really important conversation. And it is also actively building connection. Because I believe, and the reason this, the Connection Experiment podcast exists and the book is coming out soon, is because connection is a skill. the skillful way that you talk about interacting with your clients, that is the work of connection. It's not an assumption you make. It's not leading by instinct. It's doing the work of, oh, what works? What doesn't work? What's the impact of that? And what's my intention? And how am I showing up for these people? And what's this really about for me? All those great questions is the work of building and sustaining connection. So it's a really great, yeah, I just really love what you brought in.
And the other thing that you've been talking about as well, what I'm hearing, or I'm interpreting this, Nathalie, is the leaders in the room or our clients are showing up with the best of intentions. They're doing the best they can with the tools they have in that moment. And maybe no one's ever acknowledged them for that. Maybe no one's ever said, I see you're doing the best you can. I see you really showing up. And also, now they've hired you as their coach. And so their skill set is going to improve exponentially. They're going to learn more about themselves with the time that they have working with the coach or even the team. So letting go of any shame or any, I should have done this better, the shoulding that happens.
Shooting on each other.
Shooting on each other when really saying, you're doing the best you can. That leader who assumed that everybody knew what it meant to say we're champions, I think that's what you said, where he was doing the best he could. He thought he was actually being a champion for his team.
And that brings in, the importance of acknowledgments in that work. Again, acknowledgments, I believe, don't get enough attention for how we build trust with acknowledgments. In that moment to say, I really see how much you want to get this right. It doesn't matter if it's right or not. I see how much you want to get this right. I see how much you care about this team. And that is where people feel seen and feel heard. So that's a really great thing as well to point out. Change is hard, and people, I'll never forget that Brene Brown quote. I think it's one of her books. I forget if it's Daring Greatly or another one. And she says, when you believe people are doing the best they can in the moment they're in, how do you respond? How do you intend to show up? It's when we believe that people are trying to wrong us or to manipulate us or to set us up for something, or maybe they're doing it intentionally to get this wrong or to make my job harder or to create conflict. If we believe that people have that intention, then we show up defensive. We show up ready to fight, right? Ready to be right. And that mindset immediately puts us at a disadvantage. But when we show up to every situation and think, okay, whatever this is, I believe these people are doing the best they can in the moment they're in. How do I want to be?
I was just thinking, I can't wait to pick a quote out of your book when it comes out. I'll be quoting you.
Oh, that's funny. Okay, so Lisa, here's a practical question for our audience.
Okay.
Someone is walking into a difficult conversation today.
Okay.
A boss, a colleague, a friend, a partner. What's one thing that you would tell them with all your wisdom to keep in mind as you go into that conversation, to create a connection conversation and not, conflict?
I would say pick your timing. That if you're not feeling that you're at your best, if this is not the right time and it's not urgent to address it in the moment, if you need to delay it by a bit, then do that. Because you're about to share something maybe very shocking, maybe unpleasant to hear. And you need to be there to catch them as well. You need to show up with your empathy, your self-compassion first, and then your empathy can come in.
So my follow-up question then is, because I've heard this a lot, is how does a person access that when their own emotions are on high alert? How do you access empathy, compassion, let go of urgency to have that conversation right now? Like, what are some of the practices that you would say work?
I mean, it's different for everyone. But I think movement helps. Maybe moving yourself physically backwards in the other direction, or taking a breath in so that you cannot speak. You know, they say hold your tongue. What about just hold your breath for a second? But actually, when you hold it, then let it go slowly. And imagine this going extremely well. And imagine what would have happened to make that happen.
Yeah, I really like the image of you walking backwards. I think the physicality of that is actually quite powerful. Because we know our energy and our state changes with movement. So I think movement's a great one. I love breath because it's so accessible to all of us. You know, we're all breathing, considering we're alive. So the breath can be used as a tool. I say that often in our programs. I don't think we think about it that way a lot. Like, your breath is the most accessible tool you have. And then that visualization of how do I want this to go, that's the intentionality that I think a lot of people miss. It's we charge into conversations every day, a phone call, a Zoom call, a meeting, and we're not intentional about, what do I want to get out of this? What is the outcome that I'm looking for? And when just that pause of thinking about outcome and visualizing the best outcome possible, I think that can also shift our energy. So that intentionality of, how do I want this to go and what do I want to walk away with? Asking myself those questions is really creates an opportunity for more thoughtfulness, more space, as you say, and picking your timing.
Yeah, and I think it's so important when I'm working with leaders on how to give feedback.
Yes. Oh my gosh. Feedback.
Yeah.
It's a big conversation.
Oh, loaded.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm actually so pleased. I want to say I'm refreshingly pleased that there's a meta study that shows, and it goes back years and years, and it shows that it's a meta study on feedback and how the trend across all these studies is that feedback doesn't work. It only works less than 30% of the time. And those are under really, measured circumstances, I think. But even when somebody is a doctor or a professional and credible, still the percentage of people who actually fill that prescription or take that advice is less than 30%. And that says a lot about this, this sort of social scripting that we have around advice, that's how we create value. You be the smartest person in the room and people will notice you and you will get promoted and you will get all of the, the reward that comes with. And yet we know that is not necessarily the practicality of how this works, because I can tell you for sure, and maybe you'll share too, in my career and in my life, the smartest people that I consider mentors and people I would turn to and look to for so-called advice, which is really just looking at what would they do? I think to myself, what would they do in this situation? They're the people who actually aren't the loudest in the room. They don't try to be the smartest in the room. I learn from their actions, from the way I felt when they were in the room, from what I noticed about how they treat others and how they pay attention to the people in the room. That's what I feel is the most powerful way to show up. What are your thoughts on that?
As you were saying that, I had these images of my mentors, and I've been so fortunate to have amazing mentors throughout my career, and I'm still very close to all of them. They're retired and having the best time. But when I think about what it was like observing them in action, it wasn't about them. They made sure people were seen and heard. And I think back, I mean, even 25, 27, 28 years ago, when I was starting my career, those were the images of that's what I want to be like one day. That's the leader I want to be like. And they had these open doors. I mean, I could go into the CEO's office. I was a junior at this huge company, like a $60 million, $70 million company, and she had an open door. And I would come into her office, and my director, also a mentor to me, had no problem with it. And I was like, a little bit bored. Do you have anything I can do? Do you have anything you want to talk to me about? Do you have anything you want to share? And they didn't get upset about it. They were hearing me out. And then it wasn't even about me being bored. It was about other things that were happening. Maybe I needed to go deeper. But they helped me learn about myself by asking fantastic questions and honoring where I was in the moment that I was in my season, which was amazing to have that experience.
Yeah, and when I'm listening to you, I'm actually having a thought around what the opportunities are when we create spaces of connection. You walking into this person's room, like office, is an opportunity for connection, and in that connection is wisdom shared. It's vulnerability shared. It's the value of experience being shared. Without that open door policy, how many opportunities would have gone by and missed? And what would be the culture in the organization then? Because just having an open door policy is a culture move. It sets a tone in the organization, right? So interesting. I love that. So if we take this back to, I believe that on the other side of coaching is connection, because coaching is that, I think it's the skill of creating an opportunity for that connection. How do you move somebody? And you've worked with board members, you've worked with CEOs, you've worked with people in high stakes careers. How do you move somebody from, or maybe how do they move from performing to connecting? So in your first coaching session with one of these high performers, you've been either referred or it's, a new contract. They don't know you, never met them before. What do you notice about that shift? When does the shift go from performing to connecting?
It just takes one powerful question. And I observe the mask that they came in with melt off. And it is the most exciting moment for me where I have to seriously self-regulate, because I'm like, yes, we did it. Okay, we have a bond. I can feel it. They can feel it. Their energy shifts, and it can happen in that first conversation. In fact, I think it needs to happen in that first conversation. Otherwise, they're wasting your time and you're wasting their time and your own time when you could be having a better conversation somewhere else. So right away, within seconds. What is the statistic? Within 7 seconds, people will assess whether they like you or not, want to get to know you more or not, want to keep talking to you or not.
Oh yeah. We're very quick to make those decisions subconsciously. So when you say one question, in my experience, you don't know what the question is going to be that sticks. You're there, you're present, you're curious, you're inquiring, and then one question out of nowhere, that connection happens, they open up. So what I'm curious about in your experience is that question typically about their work, about their what they do, or is it more about who they are and how they are?
It's the third. It's who they are, how they are, what are they thinking, how do they show up. It's actually about when they've connected with themselves, then they've connected with you as well, because they've let their guard down. They feel safe. The shoulders come down. I've been told by clients that is their favorite day of the week, time of the week, that 1 hour, that space that we have together, that they can let it go and really let it go. Nobody is recording them. Nobody is judging them. I'm letting them do their deep thinking, their analysis. The stakes are enormous for leaders. The pressure is huge. And so holding that space, really being aligned with the person with you in that room, creates that connection. They can even feel it, even when they turn on the screen or when we sit down to have a conversation. It's also about what you don't say. The body language that we bring in is very important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Can you think of any questions though that pretty much always land? And you always have to just choose your timing to ask it. There's a few in my mind. I'm curious about you. What are some of your favorite sort of connecting questions in coaching?
That's a tough one to think about it, because I'm just in the zone and the question comes to me. So a question, what are some of my questions?
I can start if you like. Maybe it'll spawn.
Sure. Yeah, warm me up.
I love the question, what's this really about? I think that when it's asked in just the right moment, it's one that people look up. When they're looking down, they look up and they're like, oh, you mean you really see me? It's that moment of mask down, I think. Yeah. So if it's the timing's right and it fits, it has to fit with the conversation. But I love that question. What story are you telling yourself about this? I like that one too, because it brings that, it moves it from internal to, oh, it's over here. It's a story I'm telling. It's here. It's in front of me. I have more control of what's in front of me than what's inside me, right?
Yeah. Ask you about their assumptions. What assumptions are you bringing into this conversation at this moment? I find asking them about the story they're telling themselves, sometimes I very sparingly use it, because then they might say, are you calling me a liar? What do you mean I tell stories?
Oh, really? I've never had that response.
Yeah.
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, it does. It happened once, and I went, okay.
Oh, did it? Oh, wow.
Yeah.
That's good to know. And maybe it's also, because actually, that's a really important point. I think it's also my style that I bring to a session, kind of I might say, so if this was a story, what would it be? And then that question comes in later. So they're already seeing that, okay, I'm telling you, but this is just my perception. It may not be actually true or real. And not that it's not happening. It's just that it's my perception of what's happening. And so the context of how I coach and my style maybe invites that question a little bit more. And I think that's important because everybody has a different style. Everyone has a different signature. There's no copycat way. I think it's worth saying that, anybody who gives you a script to coach, that's not realistic. In our programs, we talk about our frameworks and our strategies, and we offer questions to get people started, but the real coaching happens when you let go of the script or let go of the questions that we give you and move towards what you're saying, which is that intuitive, being in the moment kind of questioning. That's really what becomes more powerful, for sure.
Yeah, what questions around perspective shift are, I think it's part of more my style, is what do you see as if you were looking down on this situation that you've described?
Yeah.
Noticing.
Yeah. Like reframing.
The reframe. That works very powerfully and very quickly, I find.
Okay, well, I see the time. We're coming to the end, and I'm really loving this conversation. But I do have a couple of questions left that I always ask every guest. Well, this one I haven't asked really, but I want to ask you because the work you do in our community as a facilitator, as a mentor to so many students, as a coach, what do you think, or what is the impact that you believe coaching can have in the world?
The word that comes to my mind is kindness. I think the impact that coaching brings is healing, is kindness, is acceptance, empathy, self-compassion. And if we had a world like that, I think it would be a very different world. If we all were aware that we all have this, and this is what being human is all about. We all have this in us. We're not really skilled on how to access it. It's not taught. And the impact of a coach is to show the person, hold up that mirror and say, you have this. This is you.
Mm-hmm. Yes, well, that's a great answer. And what does fulfillment mean to you?
Wow. So I think about two values that really come up for me, which is family and achievement. And when I'm with my family, when I'm with people I love and who love me, that is fulfillment. When I am achieving, not necessarily doesn't mean I'm winning all the business in the world. I mean, that would be great, but it's not about that. But when I am learning, when I am creating, when I am achieving and moving the bar a little bit further out than I had ever thought I could, that feels so fulfilling to me. When I'm trying a new recipe or working with a new client or in a new area I've never worked in before, and I have the confidence, I know I can do it, I know I can bring the skills with me to move that bar, I feel fulfilled. And when it's happening with family and the achievement, when I can have that together in different areas, I feel such satisfaction.
Yeah, that's a really nice sort of concept and picture of balance. And my final question, the question that I don't know that anybody really loves, but I'm going to ask it anyway because it's a hard one.
No.
If you had one opportunity to ask the universe one question that you knew you would get the answer to, what would it be?
Okay, wow. No one's ever asked me that question before. One question. Wow, you know what just came to my mind is, what is my purpose?
Yes, that's a good one. That's very similar to my question.
Yeah. Oh yeah?
Yeah.
What's your question?
Well, if I could leave a powerful or impactful, I don't know about powerful, but if I could make a difference in the world and I have the talent to do that, what is it? What do I need to pursue? You know, like that whole, how do I live my greatest potential would be the question. Yeah.
Yeah. And you know what? I think the universe is revealing that all the time. I think it is speaking to us if we listen.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and I mean that not in a, oh, what can I do? And like I hope it doesn't sound like I'm in my ego. It's actually, I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to make a difference in the world. Yes. And I want people, I want to see, like if I was looking down from wherever, heaven or the spirits of the world, if I was looking down in the afterlife, what would I notice? What would be different after I left this place? It would be, I would love to know that.
That's a great question too. And for me, what ties a bow around family and achievement is is service.
Mm-hmm.
When I am in service to others, when I am serving, I feel that. That's a different kind of connection to that. Not everything has to be paid. You can volunteer, you can spend time with your loved ones, you can have a meal together, you can sit outside, you can win a huge contract. That's achievement. You can write a book. But for me, doing it in service of others, does this make the world a better place?
Yeah, and I think you're also pointing to, like, that is also in service to yourself, right?
Yeah,
we have to be full. I believe that there has to be a sense of fulfillment in me to be able to do that for others, to live a life of service. And I know that I hear so many times in coaching sessions, especially when I'm mentoring and I'm listening to people being coached, there is a common thread of, am I enough? Am I okay? Am I doing the right things? Am I thinking the right things? Like, people are very unsure, and often resistance to self-care comes up too. That it sounds selfish to be, to care for myself. And yet I believe that we have to care for ourselves to care for others. So there's a real, it's another interesting conversation we can have one day.
Absolutely. That's another great topic.
Well, thank you so much for this time today. It was really nice to get to sort of riff with you on these topics, because I love these topics. I know we're both kind of nerdy around these things. So nice. And please let people know how they can reach you. I'm going to put it in the show notes as well. But, what's the best way? LinkedIn? Is it a website? How can they reach you?
LinkedIn is a great way to reach me. I'm pretty active on LinkedIn. I love a DM, so DM me if you have any questions. I have a website as well. It's hellogsi.com. The company is GSI Strategies, and GSI, actually, I rebranded it Taking a Coach Approach, and it stands for Growth, Strength, and Integrity.
Oh, I didn't know that. That's so cool. Oh, very nice rebrand.
Yeah, thank you. Can't have growth, strength, or integrity if you can't have a strategy without those.
Yeah.
You won't have a business left if you don't have integrity, and if you don't have the strength that it takes to be in a business. And you'll grow. You'll grow when you are doing those things. So it means a lot to me. It's values that I believe in as well. So I thought maybe it resonates with others. So I definitely appreciate any connection that anybody wants to make with me. I'm happy to make their acquaintance.
Wonderful. Well, thank you. And thank you for the work you're doing in our community as well. I think that your wisdom and your experience has lent a lot to our students and to people who want really to emulate what you've done with your career. And it's important that, we are there to show people that this can be a real, pursuit and a business. One of the questions we get asked all the time is, how do I turn coaching into a business? And you're living proof of that. And I guess I am too. This can be done.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And through different approaches. I mean,
Yes.
we bring coaching into the world in different ways.
Yeah.
And yet, look how much we talk, look how much we have in common. We can keep talking for hours about the topic. And there's been so many you too, me too moments in our conversation today that I've noticed. And can I just say one more thing?
Mm-hmm.
We talked about self-compassion a few times. So anyone listening to this podcast, if you need a sign to start looking after yourself, this is the sign. Do something that brings you joy today, because it could have a ripple effect that you can't even imagine. You are going to show up so differently when you feel fulfilled.
Yeah. And I have a poster in my office that says, always remember you will die. That today is a gift. I actually purposely I looked for it and I found it and I put it on my wall because I think it's just so important to say, like you said, today, look for joy today. Tomorrow is not guaranteed. We don't know what will happen. And I really believe that reminding myself that today is a gift helps me stay in that learner, humble, or, sort of approach to connection, to conversations, to coaching, to this. So, yeah, thank you.
So great. Thank you for the time, Nathalie. It was great to be here. I appreciate it.